ਅੱਛਾ, ਕੀ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਿਸ ਟੌਪਿਕ ਤੇ ਅੱਜ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ?
आज करते हैं turbulence, terrorism during my career in journalism
ਅੱਛਾ, we don't want to talk about immigration and stuff.
or immigration. या immigration ਤੇ ਵੀ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਜਾਂ immigration.
ਚਲੋ, turbulence and terrorism ਤੇ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ because that's a topic that you're very familiar with.
Yeah,
ਕਿਹੜੀ ਈਅਰ 'ਚ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਸਾਨੂੰ?
79 onwards.
79 onwards.
Yeah,
ਚਲੋ ਫਿਰ
79. In fact, I should start from 75.
75. ਚਲੋ
when I-
75 ਤੋਂ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਹੋ
when I
ਜਾਓ.
entered journalism. And you see, like my career in journalism, I witnessed so much of turbulence, so much of events taking place and that were hawking headlines world over, starting with 75, as I said. So the day we entered the profession, journalism, there was an emergency in India. So as I mentioned in our last interaction, so emergency came when we just started career. So people thought, okay, is it a right decision for you to join journalism when there is censorship, when there is emergency in India? So anyway, since I had taken the plunge, so I said I'll go ahead with it. And then after 2 years, 3 years of emergency period, then emergency was lifted and Indira Gandhi was ousted and Janata Party came into power with Morarji Desai as Prime Minister. So things started stabilizing again. But then terrorism started in Punjab when, like, I was a full-time journalist. So incident in Amritsar when it was an attack and Badal was chief minister. So Nirankari's Sikh clash, Akali's clash. And it started, and from then onwards, it was the beginning of terrorism in Punjab. So from 79 till about 93, 94, or even till 96, terrorism was at its peak. And during this period, there was very, very serious events that unfolded, like attack on Golden Temple, which we all remember as Operation Blue Star. Then subsequently, assassination of Indira Gandhi as Prime Minister. And then series of curfews, restrictions, censorship, and all those things. And then gradually, though the violence continued, the state violence and terrorist violence, they continued till about 99, 2000. But gradually, Punjab limped back to normalcy. So all these years, from 75 till about 2000, about 25 years, were very, very turbulent years in history of Punjab, in history of India, and especially in the history of the Sikhs. So I was witness to the entire period of that history, and I not only watched it, but I reported most of the incidents. And it was not that easy during those days because the governments were bent upon controlling media. So they would try under one pretext or the other. Okay, this story should not go, this story should be stopped, this viewpoint should not be carried in media, only government viewpoint, only government propaganda should be carried. So it was a very difficult task for news media to keep a balance and give the readers, or like if it was TV, so the viewers, a very balanced view of what was happening and very objective view. But somehow I still feel that during that period, especially between 79 and 93, the facts or the truth was a major casualty because governments insisted, like even when there was a terrorist violence in Punjab, so the stories sent by news agencies like Press Trust of India or United News of India, they should be carried, and newspapers' own staffers, they should not write about incidents of violence. So every day, so many people were getting killed. And only ultimately, PTI and UNI, in their fight for supremacy. So they would try to play up bigger figures than the actual figures so that their story is carried in newspapers. So if UNI says 8 killed in terrorist violence in Punjab during last 24 hours, PTI will say, no, 9 people were killed. And so that people would take 9 in their newspapers or in their media channels. So that was one aspect which also did a lot of damage to credibility of media in Punjab. And so newsmen working in newspapers, they were getting threats both from militants as well as from the government. So if they were reporting objectively and government thought it was anti-government, so the government would always threaten them, we'll file a case against you, we'll do this, we'll do this. And on the other hand, if the terrorists or the militants, they thought their viewpoint has not been projected, so they would issue threats. Lots of threats were issued to lots of newspapers, newspapermen, and others connected with media. So pressure was on both sides, from especially, and the media was like trying to fight away or stave off this pressure, but it was very difficult because the managements were like at times they were spineless. They were not taking any stand. They were leaving it to you. You do it the way you think it's safe and the way it is. But the moment you said, okay, we want to carry this story, they said, no, don't carry this story. This will antagonize the government or this will antagonize the militants. So all the pressures were basically on the reporters, especially the field reporters who would go to the field and face the wrath of both the government as well as the terrorists. So it was a very difficult phase, but very interesting in the sense every day you were up to a new challenge, and how you would take that challenge and how would you do your duty professionally. So that would make you very strong every day. I'm not bending up under any pressure. Though, like my editor-in-chief at that time, Mr. V.N. Narayanan, he wrote a book also after terrorism was over. So he mentioned in that book also the media coverage of terrorism in Punjab was not very objective. So media was asked to bend and media crawled. Maybe I agreed with him to an extent, but then media did some good job also. Media did highlight the problems faced by common man and issues of violence, and especially the state violence. So all right, it was accepted that terrorists were out to create headlines, and they would indulge in some incidents and try to create a scare or try to create a fear among people. But then that's their job, terrorist job. And the job of the government is to restore confidence in the people, but not frighten the people. So at this difference, the governments would not agree that media is doing a good job. They say, why you are trying to oppose whatever steps we are taking to contain violence? So we would tell them, you are not taking right steps. You are doing the same thing which terrorists are doing. They are doing violence, and you are also indulging in state violence. You are catching people, you are not letting their families know where you have taken them, and killing some of the innocent people in fake encounters and things like this. So nobody can approve of those actions of the government as well. So if the terrorists were doing, it was wrong. But if the government is doing, it's doubly the wrong, because people have put their faith in you. Okay, you will do justice and you will abide by rule of law. So it was a very, very difficult situation those days. But then we went through it and we covered it. And incidentally, from 79 till 96, 97, any major incident in Punjab of terrorist violence, I covered it. I went to the spot, though there was always a visible as well as invisible threat for the media people covering those events. But then that was part of your job. And not only incidents of terrorist violence, but the subsequent events. For example, when a Hindu leader was assassinated in Chandigarh, so I was assigned to cover his cremation and things like this. And at that time, Chandigarh, the deputy commissioner was Chaudhry Raghbir Singh, and one of the DSPs, very old and very balanced person, Mr. Kuldeep Singh Man. So they were sitting there and they saw me. They said, "How come, Prabhjot, you are here?" I said, "I have to cover this." He said, "No, you should not, because they moment they see a turbaned man, they'll target you because crowd is very agitated." So I said, "No, but nobody else is prepared to cover this event, so I have to cover it." So they were very annoyed with me. They said, "No, no, no. Why you are risking your life? What will you gain out of this? And if some harm comes to you?" I said, "No, harm is a part of life, and it's a professional hazard. So I have to live with it, but I have to cover it. I can't go back and say there is a threat or the atmosphere is not very congenial for me to go and report." So ultimately, they were talking to each other, and then they said, "Okay, you want to come to cremation ground with the procession, so you will have to sit in the jeep of the deputy superintendent of police, Mr. Man." So Mr. Man said, "I'll take you in my jeep. So please promise me you won't come out of the jeep. So whatever you have to report, you want to watch, you watch from my jeep, and we'll be accompanying the procession. So you will not miss anything, but we'll make sure you are safe." So I covered that procession, Mr. Inderpal Gupta's cremation, in a police officer's jeep. So those were the days, like threats like that were also there. The crowd, the mob threat. And even when station director of Patiala Radio FM band, Mr. Manchanda, was assassinated, so I had gone to Patiala. And they had, like after killing him, so they called all media houses. So we went there and his head was put in Karnal. So body was found near Patiala, near Rajpura. And then we followed police to Karnal where his head was found. So they put the head in a tin. There used to be tins of ghee, desi ghee or dalda ghee, 16 kg. So they used that tin box, put the head in that, brought it back to Rajpura, stitched the head with the body. Then they performed the post-mortem examination. And it was so suffocating in that small room where the post-mortem was being conducted. So I felt suffocated. I was feeling like throwing up. So I want to have a fresh wave of air, fresh breathe. And I just moved a little bit out of that room. And then some policeman said, "Oh, what are you doing? They'll attack you. They'll kill you. Come in." I said, "I'm feeling unwell. I'm feeling like throwing up." He said, no way, you can't. You are a turbaned man and the crowd is so agitated." So he pulled me in. So I had my back towards that operation of postmortem. Ultimately, when the postmortem was completed, the procession took away the body, shouting slogans against the government, against Akalis, against everybody, police. So they didn't allow me to come out of that room till the entire crowd had dispersed. So I stayed in for another hour after the whole operation was over. So then I came back and I went to my editor-in-chief and I told him how difficult it was to cover that event and why you keep on sending me to all these events. He says, "Nobody is prepared to go. Only you are there." So, and then I came back and I narrated the whole thing to everybody. Everybody was so scared, even after listening to the whole story. So me and Karam Singh, because Karam Singh is a clean-shaven Hindu Brahmin, so he had no such problems. But I, wearing a turban, always had a problem, especially when such incidents they took place. So those were the days like this when things would go out of your hand, out of your control, and you didn't know what would you do if something very awkward happened to you, something very unpleasant happened to you, and it used to happen quite often. Yeah, so that was the time when media was real under pressure. It was very trying time for media to cover and report as objectively as we could. So there are series of incidents that happened. And once everybody knows Brigadier Harcharan Singh. He was a member of the 1975 World Cup team. And one of the days, he had come to me for some personal work. So it was a winter evening and it was very foggy outside, very, very cold, very chilly. And the moment we reached home, we got a call that there is an ambush in which the convoy of Deputy Commissioner of Roper as well as Senior Superintendent of Police was attacked and 8-9 people were killed. So I told Colonel, at that time he was Colonel Harcharan Singh, I said, Colonel Sahab, you sit home, I'll go and I report. He says, it's already 10 o'clock in the evening and it's so dark and so foggy, nothing is visible. I said, no, but I have to go. This is the call of the duty. He said, no, I'll come with you. I said, no, you will, why you want to come? Because you have come all the way from Siliguri and traveled long distance and then you came to Chandigarh by bus from Delhi. You should take rest. I will go and come back. You take your dinner and go to bed. So he said, no, he'll come with me. So he came with me, but we couldn't go far. I hardly could go from Sector 7. At that time, I was living in Sector 7. Hardly could go up to 42 where new bus stand has come up. And then it was so difficult to drive because nothing was visible. So ultimately, we turned towards PGI, and luckily for me, I met SSP Roper there. I said, how come you are here? You were attacked. He said, yes, I'm lucky we survived. He said when we had gone there to visit a spot where there was some killing and we had gone to console the people, the families. And when we were returning, they ambushed us. And fortunately, he said instead of traveling in his own car, he sat in the car of the deputy commissioner. So they traveled together on way back, and his car was attacked. 8 men attached with his security, they were killed in that ambush. But he survived just because he was not in that car. And then he had come to get those people who were injured, about 14 of them, in that ambush. So then he gave me all the details of how it happened, what happened, and who all were killed and who all are injured. So I got all the details, and then I came back to the office. I filed a report, and by 2 in the morning or 3 in the morning, I returned home, and Colonel Harcharan Singh said, yeah, it's a very tough job you are doing. I am in army and I am in Northeast where so much of insurgency is there. But we never get into such tight situations. I got a lot of feeling of insecurity when you were doing all this. I said, no, that's a part of my job. So these sort of incidents, they used to happen. And these were the hazards you faced in everyday life. Almost every day, something like this happened. And those 25 years were full of excitement, and always the sword of uncertainty hanged over our heads all the time.
You were working at the Tribune. ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਰਾ ਟਾਈਮ ਟ੍ਰਿਬਿਊਨ ਤੇ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਯਾਦ ਆ ਘਰੋਂ ਸਕੂਟਰ ਤੇ ਨਿਕਲਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਹੁਣ 2 ਸਟੋਰੀਜ਼ ਦੱਸੀਆਂ ਰਾਈਟ. ਇੱਕ ਤਾਂ ਜਿਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਬੰਦੇ ਦਾ ਸਿਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਵੱਢਤਾ
ਮਨਚੰਦਾ ਦਾ,
ਤੇ ਇੱਕ ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਐਂਬੁਸ਼ ਕਰਤਾ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਅਫਸਰ ਨੂੰ,
ਸੰਜੀਵ ਗੁਪਤਾ,
ਰਾਈਟ. ਐਂਡ ਦੈਨ ਯੂ ਹੈਡ ਗੋਨ ਟੂ ਕਵਰ ਬੋਥ ਆਫ ਥੀਜ਼ ਇੰਸਟੈਂਸਿਸ. ਤੇ ਹੁਣ ਇਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਇਸ ਟਾਈਮ ਤੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਛੱਡ ਕੇ ਹੋਰ ਵੀ ਤਾਂ ਕਿੰਨੇ ਜਰਨਲਿਸਟ ਸੀਗੇ. ਵਰ ਦੇਅਰ ਸਟੋਰੀਜ਼ ਆਫ ਅਦਰ ਜਰਨਲਿਸਟ ਦੈਟ ਯੂ ਰਿਮੈਂਬਰ ਜਿਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਇੰਸੀਡੈਂਟਸ ਹੋਏ ਜਾਂ ਦੈਟ ਵਰ?
ਨਹੀਂ, ਇੰਸੀਡੈਂਟ ਤੇ those days some of the journalists, especially belonging to a particular group of newspapers, they were attacked because militants thought they were opposing them. So like Jagbani group, Hind Samachar group, there were some people, they were attacked. Even some people got killed. And as I said, the radio station director, Mr. Manchanda, whose assassination I had gone to cover at Rajpura. So even people from radio, they were killed, attacked. Even a bomb was thrown at the Tribune office on our press at night. So these incidents happened with the newsmen from other media organizations as well. But since in the Tribune those days in Chandigarh, which was the headquarters, I was the only one with the turban as a reporter among the reporters. So every militant would think like if they reach me, I'll get their viewpoint published. Government also thought that since I am a Sikh, so I may be having some connections with militants. So that put me under a lot of pressure. But then, fortunately, unfortunately, for any major incident, the choice of a reporter would fall on me. Okay, let Prabhjot go and cover it. So I at times argued with my seniors, okay, why other people are not being sent to cover such incidents? Why should I always be there? Then they said, no, no, no. You see, you are trained in reporting crime. You are trained in, and still, like though there were so many cases against me also, the police registered cases for interviewing some of the militant leaders, some of the banned organizations. But then that was part of my job because they also wanted their viewpoint in the media. And Sikh Student Federation or Pantha committees. So I had a chance to talk to almost all leaders. And they had taken us in early in the morning from press club to a place where all top leaders were sitting there. And they talked to us, not me alone, but then there were so many other people were with me, like 5, 6, 7 journalists were there from Statesman, from Jagbani, from Punjabi Tribune. And we all went there and we talked to them. And they top leaders who were at that time members of one of the strongest Pantha committees. And we met them at a public place, in a public restaurant, government-run restaurant. So that was also there. So they wouldn't give you time. They would just tell you, come with us. And you have to meet some people. And you have no choice. Like early morning playing tennis and somebody picks you up from the press club and takes you away about 2 hours away. And then you return home around 1 in the afternoon. You had gone for tennis in the morning at 5. And your family is worried where you have disappeared because those days there were no cell phones. And even if the cell phones were there, they won't have allowed you to use them because their whereabouts were to be kept a secret. And whenever we used to write a report, we would we would name some ambiguous place where we met them. We will not say like exact place we went and met them. And the police would be after us. They say, where did you meet them? You know, they are wanted people. So your duty to inform the police if a wanted person wants to meet you. So, but then we always took a stand, no, we have to discharge a professional duty. We cannot always do what you want us to do. That's not our job to inform you, like I'm going to meet so-and-so. No. It means they won't trust us and they would not call us and they would even threaten us. But the police won't understand this. They say, no, law is law. Law is for everyone. So such incidents, they used to happen and all journalists faced problems, especially those who are covering on day-to-day basis. Number of them, some people who were like Amritsar at that time, they had a very tough time. They were always threatened and some of them were even attacked also in Amritsar. So some journalists at other places also, they were attacked. So I'm not saying I was alone in that. Many journalists, they did their job well and they suffered a lot. And but that was the call of the hour. That was the requirement of your duty. So you had to face it.
ਇਹ ਪ੍ਰੈਸ ਕਲੱਬ ਵਾਲਾ ਪੂਰਾ ਦਿਨ ਜਰਾ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਡਿਟੇਲ ਦੱਸੋਗੇ ਕਿ ਸਵੇਰੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਪ੍ਰੈਸ ਕਲੱਬ ਗਏ, ਕਿਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਗਏ, ਕੀ ਹੋਇਆ ਦਿਨ ਉਸ ਦਿਨ?
ਲਾਈਕ
ਇਹਨੇ ਕਿਸ ਸਾਲ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੈ?
ਹਾਂ, ਇਹ ਗੱਲ ਹੋਣੀ ਹੈ ਜਦੋਂ ਪੰਥਕ ਕਮੇਟੀਜ਼ ਵਰ ਵੈਰੀ ਸਟਰੋਂਗ, ਮੇਬੀ 91, 92. And I was just playing tennis in the club and message came, sir, koi milan aaya ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਬਾਹਰ. The waiters came. I said, ਕੌਣ ਆਏ? ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਉਹ ਬਾਹਰ ਸਕੂਟਰ ਤੇ ਬੈਠੇ ਆ. So I went there. ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਫਤਿਹ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਬੁਲਾਉਂਦੇ ਨੇ. They said, ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਭਾਜੀ, ਚਲੋ ਚਲੀਏ. ਮੈਂ ਕਿੱਥੇ? ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਅੱਜ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਜਰਨੈਲ ਮਿਲਾਉਣੇ ਨੇ. ਚਲੋ ਜਲਦੀ ਕਰੋ, ਬਸ ਟਾਈਮ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ, ਸਕੂਟਰ ਚੱਕੋ. ਮੈਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਕੱਪੜੇ ਕੁਪੜੇ ਤਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ, ਬਸ ਠੀਕ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਹੀ ਚਲੋ. ਹੁਣ ਨਿੱਕਰ ਟੀ-ਸ਼ਰਟ ਪਾਈ, ਸਿਰ 'ਤੇ ਪਟਕਾ ਬੰਨਿਆ ਅਤੇ ਰੈਕਟ ਮੈਂ ਉੱਥੇ ਹੀ ਰੱਖਿਆ ਅਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਚਲੋ ਫਿਰ ਜਾਣਾ ਹੀ ਆ, ਹੁਣ ਤਾਂ ਜਾਣਾ ਹੀ ਪੈਣਾ. ਸੋ ਉੱਥੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਚੱਲੇ ਪ੍ਰੈਸ ਕਲੱਬ ਤੋਂ ਐਂਡ ਵੀ ਕੇਮ ਟੂ ਸੈਕਟਰ 22. ਉੱਥੇ ਦੈਨ ਦੇ ਹੈਡ ਐਟ ਦੋਜ਼ ਡੇਜ਼ ਦੇ ਹੈਡ ਏ ਮਾਰੂਤੀ ਵੈਨ ਵੇਟਿੰਗ ਫॉर ਅਸ. They had hired that van. So then other journalists, Sanjeev Gaur, Jagtar, Parvana, and other Jagtar, so they all came and we were put in that van. And then the van started from there, Sector 22. Then we came to Kharad. Kharad, they stopped the van and then asked us to get down from the van. Another van they hired, and we were asked to sit in the second van. And second van, we were heading towards Ludhiana. So then Mr. Parvana, he said, "Sanu kithe le challe ho?" At 11 baje, Siddharth Shankar, he was the governor at that time. One of the press conference. So the guy who was conducting us, he didn't look back. He was sitting in the front seat with that driver. He raised his hand like this. He said, Governor diya press conference roz aj saadi bas chup. And everybody went to sleep. Nobody said anything. So we went there and we went to Neelong. So in Neelong they asked us to get down from the van, and at that time there used to be Virka booth at that one side of the canal. So we were going towards the booth, and then I saw some of the leaders, including all members of the Pantha committee. So I asked him, I said, you are taking us this side, they are going that side. He said, nahi hage. I know them very well. He said, nahi. Thodi der baad, after a while, he said, yes. So he took us there. There is a restaurant on the canal side. So we were taken there and we sat there. They all 5 top leaders, they were there. So then question hours, first they talked to us and then they said, any questions? So almost everybody asked all questions like why you kill Hindus, why you kill innocent people. So they explained everything. They said, no, we are not doing it. Government is trying to play mischief. And they are government agents, the cats. So they are doing this to defame us, to defame our movement. So whatever, we were there with them for almost 1.5 hours. And then they said, please keep sitting. We are leaving. The guy who brought you here, he'll drop you back. But wait for a while. Anyway, so we had no choice. So they left. And then that guy said, okay, now it's almost lunchtime. You have lunch and then I'll drop you back. So when we came to the restaurant inside, so everybody said, bas jaldi dal roti khula do. He said, nahi, anybody wants to have some glass of beer or you want to have some chicken? He said, nobody, no, we are all pure vegetarian, because they were so scared. Because that time there was also a diktat by militants. If we should not drink at public places, we should not even take meat. So everybody was scared. And then we had our lunch, quick lunch, like dal roti. And we were back in our van. And then we came to Samrala. So that guy got down from the van. So he gave me 185 rupees. He said, "Ede van wale de 160-65 रुपए बनने ने बाकी इन्हों टिप दे दियो ते मैं चलिया हूं तुसी जाओ वापस चंडीगढ़." So once he left the van, everybody was relaxed. Okay, now that phase is over. So we reached back Chandigarh around 2:30, 3 o'clock. So such incidents would happen very often. They would just come and take you away. So you would never know, like maybe how you can doubt your intentions. Like how would you know that they are militants or the police cats? So very scary time, very uncertain time, but then you had no choice. So you would accompany them and hoping you would come back and file a report.
ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਉਸ ਟਾਈਮ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਹਿ ਰਹੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਮੈਸੇਜ ਕੁਝ ਹੋਰ ਸੀਗਾ ਕਿ ਗਵਰਨਮੈਂਟ ਜੋ ਸੀਗੀ ਉਸ ਟਾਈਮ ਦੇ ਵਰ ਪਲੇਇੰਗ ਫਾਉਲ। ਉਹ ਇੱਥੇ ਵੀ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ, ਇੱਥੇ ਜੋ ਫੈਡਰਲ ਏਜੰਟਸ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਜਦ ਇੱਥੇ ਕੋਈ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਦੇ ਡੂ ਥੀਜ਼ ਵੀਅਰਡ ਥਿੰਗਸ ਟੂ ਕ੍ਰੀਏਟ ਅ ਸਰਟਨ ਕਾਈਂਡ ਆਫ ਅ ਨੈਰੇਟਿਵ। ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਉਸ ਟਾਈਮ ਜੋ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮਿਲਣ ਗਏ ਸੀਗੇ ਉਹ ਕੀ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਅਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਕੀ ਮੈਸੇਜ ਸੀਗਾ?
ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਮੈਸੇਜ ਬੜਾ ਕਲੀਅਰ ਸੀ। ਦੇ ਵਾਂਟਡ ਕਿ ਦੇ ਆਰ ਫਾਈਟਿੰਗ ਫॉर Sikh homeland, Khalistan. They said, we have been promised so many things by so many governments, but all governments are gradually, they turn against us. They have been denying Punjab its dues. Punjab in general and Sikhs in particular. So they said when the partition took place, it was not partition of India. It was only partition of two states, Bengal and Punjab. And maximum people were killed in Punjab. Punjab lost so much. And again, 66, there was another partition of Punjab. And Haryana was carved out and Chandigarh became a union territory instead of remaining a capital. And all the major projects which Punjab had started after 47, like Bhakra Dam, Byas Dam, Chandigarh as capital, Punjab University, Punjab Engineering College, all were taken by center under its control. So they said what they have done for Punjab. So their fight was, and then you see there were many, many important socio-economic issues. After 47, you see Punjab is basically an agriculture state. So the land holdings were divided. When like father to baad pota aa gaya, putta baad grandson aa gaya, तो land holdings became very smaller. So they were unremunerative. So they were not like very practical to do farming and sustain your family. So one. Number two was the government of India at that time changed its policies. Earlier, Punjabis in general and Sikhs in particular, they used to go to defense forces. But then government of India came out with a formula that there has to be a ratio of total population versus able-bodied persons. So Punjab's quota, which was at one time about 17% in defense forces, it came down to about 2%. So that job avenue was also almost shut on their face, Punjabis. And number two, another important factor was, since agriculture I talked about, it was no more remunerative, then government defense forces, then also other government organizations where recruitment was again restricted to population size of a state. So Punjab was very small, almost less than 2% of the total population of the country. So Punjab's quota was coming down very rapidly. And then Punjabis, as usual, they were very fond of traveling abroad, settling abroad. They would always look for green pastures overseas. But then in late 70s, and many countries introduced visa regime. Earlier there used to be no visas. Before you take a flight, you could all you needed was a passport. Moment you land, for example, if somebody landed in Canada, so then they had to apply for a visa after landing here. So, but then rules were changed and visa was made mandatory for many countries. So you had to get a visa before you could board a flight or book a flight. So that avenue was also closed, going abroad. Many people were going abroad in 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, until early 70s. But then late 70s, visa regime was introduced for many countries. So that avenue was also closed. And then another important factor, in defense forces, when you join defense forces, if you are not picking a rank, like you are spy, Havaldar, Major, Subedar, or Subedar Major. So after 15 years, 20 years, or 22 years of service, you have to go back home. So a guy who has joined Defense Forces at 18 and by 38 he is trained in handling weapons, but then he is told to go back home. So what? Then there were not many schemes for their rehabilitation. Once they retire at 38, what would they do? So there were not many jobs. So all those factors, and then the demands of Punjab and discrimination of center towards Punjab. So all these factors put together built that movement for independent state. They said the center must give Punjab and Sikhs their due. Because at the time of partition, they opted to stay with India, not to go with Pakistan, though there are all their historic gurdwaras are in Pakistan. So anyway, so their argument used to be, okay, government of India is discriminating against Punjab and against Sikhs, so we have to fight for our rights. We have to fight for our own homeland. So that was their viewpoint. And the government would say, no, we are doing everything. India is a democracy. Everybody has equal rights. And they say Sikhs are very important. They fought our freedom struggle. They contribute to the maximum. And they are most affluent. They are good farmers. They are good sportsmen. They are good soldiers. But whenever it came to a demand, setting up heavy industry in Punjab or giving Punjab its due or making agriculture more remunerative, the center would say, no, all states have equal rights. So we can't just pick Punjab alone. So that was the reason for this struggle to grow. But since they started using power in the sense weapons and arms and ammunition, browbeating people, threatening people, so then it started losing the campaign started losing. If it was a peaceful campaign, I think it would have done much better. Moment it was turned they took to armed conflict with the state and the people, many people backed out. They said, no, violence has no place. So that's why gradually the movement started dying out.
ਤੇ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਲੀਡ ਕੌਣ ਕਰੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਬੰਦੇ ਕਿਹੜੇ ਜੋ ਟੌਪ ਤੇ ਕਿਹੜੇ ਬੰਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਜੋ ਇਹ ਸਾਰੇ
They're different. You see, they're different organizations. Problem with the Sikhs is they never had a uniform command. There would be groups here, groups there. They would always claim that they are the best. They are the ones who are leading the Sikh Panth or community. For example, as I said, Pantha committees. There were so many Pantha committees, they were claiming that we are the ones who are heading all the militant organizations are working under our command, under our umbrella. Other Pantha committee would say, no, they are working under our umbrella. So since there was no unified command and there was no unified agenda, okay, what for they are struggling. Because of that, and the government was, as the policies are, they would divide and rule. So they would divide them. And they were successful in penetrating in most of the militant organizations. So afterwards, I did a story also in the Tribune full page, Facts and Fiction, where some of the people and police officers admitted that they had black cats who had penetrated into militant organizations. And they were very active and militants, but actually they were police agents. So they were also used to defame the movement and also break the movement. So they would pass on the information and some of the leaders would be caught and maybe eliminated or maybe sent to jail. But those moles were working inside some of the militant organizations. So the role was very dubious. So you would never know, okay, who is a genuine for Khalistan movement or Sikh demands, or who were just trying to get info and supply it to the government, working as moles. So all contradictions, all different combinations, all different situations we witnessed during that period.
ਤੇ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਫਿਰ ਹੁਣ ਇੱਕ ਤਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਇੰਟਰੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਹੋਇਆ ਸੀਗਾ ਉੱਥੇ ਨੀਲੋ ਟੈਰਰਿਸਟ ਲੀਡਰਸ ਨਾਲ, ਹੋਰ ਕਿਹੜੇ ਇੰਟਰੈਕਸ਼ਨਸ ਹੋਏ ਸੀਗੇ
ਬਹੁਤ ਆਈ ਲਾਈਕ
ਮੈਮੋਰੇਬਲ ਕਿਹੜੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ?
memorable, like number of them. Some of the leaders, they would come to the Tribune office early in the morning.
ਟ੍ਰਿਬਿਊਨ ਹੀ ਆ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਸੀ?
Wanted people. I interviewed some of them in the Tribune office at 8 in the morning. At 7 in the morning, when office was closed, they would come. And especially when there was so much of intelligence, so much of CID. I met a couple of them at the PGI, on the lawns of the PGI. Then one guy, he used to claim, then he became an MP also. I met him a couple of times in Chandigarh, near Zirakpur, and at other places. So, number of such leaders then at the time of like Sikh festivals. So I met them at outside historic gurdwaras. So they would come there at Nanpur Sahib, at Fatehgarh Sahib, at outside in Amritsar also, inside Golden Temple complex also. I met so many of them. So interaction would depend upon their willingness. Like you couldn't decide that you want to meet somebody, a member of Mantha committee. They would decide when they want to meet you. So your choice was not there. They would decide, okay, we want to send a message through media. So they would call select journalists and give them briefing, and even at times they would answer questions. But otherwise, their communication was one-sided. They would send us very lengthy handouts, sometimes handwritten. And at the end of each press note would be a threat. Please carry it as it is. If you don't carry, if you cut this, edit this, then we know where your children are going for this education. They would be dismembered. So that threat would come with every press note. And press notes would be delivered at your home, and sometimes they would leave them with your neighbors and ask them to pass them on to you, because they would think there may be surveillance at our places, some intelligence may be watching, so they will not come to our houses, so they leave the press notes at neighbors' houses. And the government also used to do the same thing. Government would keep on watching you all the day. What are you doing? Whom you are going to meet? When and where you meet somebody? So they would also keep a watch. So you were always under surveillance. Those were the days. So it was very tough. You never had any privacy. And then the threat perception was always there.
ਸਾਡੇ ਘਰ ਇੱਕ ਤੋਪ ਪਈ ਹੋਈ ਸੀਗੀ, ਉਹਦੀ ਕੀ ਕਹਾਣੀ ਹੈ?
Oh, one of the militant organization leader, he used to come to my place. So he said, ਭਾਜੀ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਰੱਖ ਲਓ, ਇਹ ਸਾਡਾ ਇੱਕ ਹੈਗਾ indicator ਕਿ ਜੇ anybody who comes to attack you, and if he sees this lying here, he will not attack you. So it means that you are, if not an enemy, not a friend, at least you are not opposed that badly to us as people are in the media. So at least you will give credence to our statements, our meetings, our leaders, and so they will think you as a wisher, well-wisher, not a well-wisher, but a wisher, a professional. Contact with you is only on professional lines, you are not biased. If there is a news story, you will carry it. If there is no news story, you will not carry it. But moment they see this lying here, it means they will think that you are an objective and fair journalist. They will not attack you. So that was the story of that brass where I used to keep in my living room. Always, so that anybody who comes to my house would see that lying there near the fireplace. So he insisted that I must keep it there, so that this will minimize the threat perception or threat level, because you never know, they would come and come quietly, simple people, and moment they would come and attack you and they disappear. That was the modus operandi at that time. They would come visit houses of officers, journalists, others, political personalities, attack them and go away. Early morning, late evening was the time they used to choose for their targets. So that was one reminder, कि don't harm him.
ਇੱਕ ਇਹੀ ਆਬਜੈਕਟ ਸੀਗਾ ਕਿ ਹੋਰ ਵੀ ਕੋਈ ਆਬਜੈਕਟ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੇ ਅੱਗੇ ਗਿਫਟ ਕੀਤੇ ਜਾਂ ਦਿੱਤੇ ਕੀ ਕਹੀ ਸੀਗਾ
बस एक यही सीगा which was at place, but otherwise they knew me because whenever they would call me, I would listen to them. I would ask them all the questions, whatever questions I had professionally and which I was supposed to ask them. I would never hesitate from asking them, and they were to be very honest, they were very fair to me. So they would answer those questions. Sometimes they would tell me, Paji, don't please put it in the paper. This is for your information. Please don't put it in paper. But moment we think, yes, we want this to be projected, we'll tell you. And then you can ask us other questions if you have any. But right now, please don't publish this. Only carry this much, which we are telling you. So you use your discretion from this also. But this part, please don't carry. So they would tell. They would confide in you, and that time you had to, even government also would do the same thing. Okay, please don't carry this. We are giving you this brief. Any question on this brief, you ask us, but rest, please leave the other subjects for the moment. So that was very fair on part of either of the state or for the militants. Professionally, unless you just prevent us from discharging our duties, then that was not tolerable. But there were many, many occasions when the government would not tell you, but they would tell your bosses, editors, this story is not to be carried. And then you file your story and it won't appear next day. And when you ask the desk why it was not used, they say, no, you ask the editor. And the editor would say, no problem. Next time we'll use it. But somehow this time we couldn't use it. They won't tell you why. But we would know that under government pressure, the story was not used.
ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਹਨੇ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਥੋੜ੍ਹੀ ਦੇਰ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਦੱਸ ਰਹੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਕਿ ਜਦ ਟੈਰਰਿਸਟ ਤੋਂ ਪ੍ਰੈਸ ਰਿਲੀਜ਼ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਥੱਲੇ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਇਹ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਹੀ ਛਾਪਣਾ ਹੈ ਸੋ ਹਾਊ ਡਿਡ ਦ ਨਿਊਜ਼ਪੇਪਰ ਰਿਐਕਟ ਟੂ ਦੈਟ ਹਾਊ ਡਿਡ ਦ ਐਡੀਟਰ ਰਿਐਕਟ ਟੂ ਦੈਟ
I had gone to attend a course, war correspondent course in 1989. And then there was a very famous Sukha Jinda episode. I was not in Chandigarh, so I was away for 6 weeks for war correspondent course. And then Sukha Jinda sent a letter after General Vaidya's assassination. So they wanted the whole letter to appear as it is. First day Tribune carried only a portion of it. And then they issued a threat, a veiled threat. And very next day, the full letter appeared in the Tribune on op-ed page, full one-page letter. And then the government took a very serious view. Okay, why media? Why Tribune? And other people also, those who are not in favor of this movement, so they also criticize Tribune, okay, why we come to the pressure. And that remained with us. So many people thought the Tribune was also like any other newspaper, so it succumbed to the pressure. So it happened in the history of the Tribune also. Full-page letter was carried, full page, one word by word. Not even a word was changed. And this is how they wanted, and it was how it was published.
ਜਦ ਟ੍ਰਿਬਿਊਨ ਨੇ ਅੱਧਾ ਲੈਟਰ ਛਾਪਿਆ ਤੇ ਥ੍ਰੈਟ ਕੀ ਆਇਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ
ਕਿ ਦੇਖ ਲਾਂਗੇ ਇਹ ਲੈਟਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਛਾਪਿਆ ਸੋ ਵੀ ਵਿਲ ਨੋ whom to attack, where to attack, and we'll make sure Tribune doesn't come out anymore. So the threats were, at times, people took them very seriously because they would, once they issued a threat, it means they would carry out action also. Because they used to, as they did with the station director, All India Radio, and other people in radio and Doordarshan, and even with teachers, those who didn't follow their dictates. So, because of such incidents, the fear was so much. So the threat were never taken lightly because they were able to strike. And what they needed was, you see, with terrorism is there is always an element of surprise. So you protect yourself all 24 hours. 1 second or 10 seconds, 15 seconds, you relax and they attack you, and then you are done. So that element is with them. How long you can defend yourself or protect yourself? So you are always exposed. So, and because of such perceptions, because such actions which had taken place in the recent past, so you would never dismiss a threat lightly. So they would always tell you, the police, even other organizations, even other your well-wishers, please don't take it lightly. Be prepared and be defensive. Be like, don't take any more chances. So those were real threats those days.
ਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਦੱਸ ਰਹੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਟ੍ਰਿਬਿਊਨ ਤੇ ਵੀ ਬੰਬ ਸੱਟਿਆ ਸੀਗਾ।
ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰੀ ਹੈਂਡ ਗ੍ਰੇਨੇਡ ਸੁੱਟਿਆ ਸੀ। ਸਾਡੀ ਰਾਤ ਨੂੰ ਪ੍ਰਿੰਟਿੰਗ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ, ਐਂਡ ਔਨ ਦ ਪ੍ਰਿੰਟਿੰਗ ਪ੍ਰੈਸ ਹਾਲ ਦੇ ਹਰਲਡ ਅ ਬੰਬ ਫਰਮ ਆਊਟਸਾਈਡ, ਇੰਨਾ ਵੱਡਾ ਹੈਂਡ ਗ੍ਰੇਨੇਡ, ਐਂਡ ਲੱਕੀਲੀ ਇਟ ਡਿਡਨਟ ਐਕਸਪਲੋਡ. It landed down in the press, and then there was so much of panic. People were scared. Police was called in. The security agencies came. They took away the bomb, defused it, and had it exploded, I don't know what would have been the fate of Tribune and the media had it exploded, because at that time, press is the busiest place. Many people are there in the press. So about, say, 100 people at a time in the press, because that time their pages are made. Those days, pages were made manually on the stone. So there used to be the composing machines, lino machines, and mono machines. Mono means each letter would come out cast, and lino means one full line would come out. It would be cast. So those machines were there. So many machines would work simultaneously. Then somebody is making a page. Then somebody is taking out a proof on the flong. Then somebody is making plates. Somebody is putting the plates on the machine before printing. Because from 8 till about 2 in the morning is the busiest time. Those days is used to like printing time. And the whole activity would be, even the desk people, sub-editors, they would come to see the page being made. They would tell the page makers, please put this story here, thing like this. So that is the time when they threw the bomb. But luckily for us, luckily for the Tribune, it didn't explode. Yeah.
ਕਿ ਉਹ ਜਾਣਬੁੱਝ ਕੇ ਇਦਾਂ ਵੀ ਤਾਂ ਹੋ ਸਕਦਾ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਬਸ ਡਰਾਉਣ ਵਾਸਤੇ
You never know, because they wanted to tell you, yes, you are under our observation, so we know what you are doing and what and when we can strike you. So the message was loud and clear.
ਪਰ ਬਾਅਦ ਪਤਾ ਚੱਲਿਆ ਕਿ ਬਈ ਕਿੰਨੇ ਕਰਾਇਆ ਸੀਗਾ, ਕਿੰਨੇ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੇ
some militant organization claimed responsibility also. Okay, we threw the bomb, threw the hand grenade, but they said that we didn't want to harm the Tribune, but we wanted to tell them a message, give them a message.
ਹੋ ਸਕਦਾ ਕਿ ਸ਼ਾਇਦ ਸਿਰਫ ਡਰਾਉਣ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ
ਕੀਤਾ ਹੋਵੇ, because otherwise they will not throw a hand grenade which will not explode.
ਹੋ ਸਕਦਾ, ਮੈਨੂੰ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਤੱਕ ਲੱਗ ਰਿਹਾ ਕਿ
it was just to create a scare.
ਪਰ ਇੰਨੀ ਨੇੜੇ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਆ ਗਏ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ
ਨਹੀਂ, ਹੁਣ ਬੰਬ ਸੁੱਟਣਾ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇੰਨਾ ਭਾਰਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਆ, 2-2.5 ਕਿਲੋ ਦਾ ਤਾਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਆ ਉਹ ਸ਼ੈਲ ਪੂਰਾ ਬਣਿਆ, ਤੇ ਸੜਕ ਤੋਂ ਸੁੱਟਿਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ, ਸੜਕ ਉੱਤੋਂ ਛੱਤ ਤੋਂ ਥੱਲੇ, ਬਿਕਾਜ਼ ਉਹਦੇ 'ਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਪ੍ਰੈਸ ਉੱਤੇ ਛੱਤ ਸੀ ਉਹ ਦੂਜੀ ਤਾਂ ਹੈ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ, ਉਹ ਤਾਂ ਟਿੰਨਾਂ ਵਾਲੀ ਛੱਤ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਆ, ਉਹਦੇ 'ਚੋਂ ਟਿੰਨ 'ਚੋਂ ਜਾਂ ਸ਼ੀਸ਼ਾ ਵੀ ਲੱਗਿਆ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਕਈ ਥਾਵਾਂ 'ਤੇ, ਉਹ 'ਚੋਂ ਡਿੱਗ ਪਿਆ ਥੱਲੇ।
ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਅਗਲੇ ਦਿਨ ਅਖਬਾਰ ਆਇਆ ਸੀਗਾ ਕਿ
ਅਖਬਾਰ ਤਾਂ ਆਇਆ ਸੀ, ਅਖਬਾਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਬੰਦ ਹੋਇਆ.
even though there was a bomb scare that night.
That time also the paper came out. Paper, like when after Operation Blue Star in June, there was a curfew, so nobody could come. All papers were closed for 4-5 days. After the curfew was lifted on 7th of June, so we came to office, and then there was a curfew again in the city. So Mr. Prem Bhatia was editor-in-chief. He said, can we do something? How we can get our employees to our office? Because paper is to be published at night, and curfew starts at 6 in the evening. So how people would come? So we requested district administration, and they put 2 magistrates in the Tribune office. So they issued to all employees of Tribune, sitting in the Tribune, curfew passes. So that's how we could bring out a paper. And on that night, I had even gone to meet General Sundarji at Chandi Mandir. At that time, it was not Western Command headquarters, but it was only a core headquarters. So I had gone and met him at the officer's mess immediately after Operation Blue Star. And entire city was under army. Yeah. So those were the days when there was curfew and there was army deployed everywhere, and army would not accept any explanation for you being on the road, why you are out. They will not let you go. But still, so we had to get curfew passes made, and we would bring out paper, and then the problem would arise, how would we transport the paper? Because Chandigarh magistrate would issue curfew pass only for Chandigarh. Now the van or the bus or the truck carrying newspapers to, say, Amritsar, how would they get clearance from Ropar, then Nawanshahar, then Jalandhar, then Kapurthala, then Amritsar, and likewise any other place in Punjab? So we would tell our reporters and district headquarters, okay, they must get the passes made for the people who are in the vehicle delivering newspapers early in the morning, 4 in the morning, 3 in the morning. Before then, hawkers would also get passes, because then they had to go around to distribute papers. So those were very difficult times. So the problems were so many, multiple of problems we had to face those days. And then at times the governments would issue an order. Even till today, not many people would know. We as a newspaper man, we are supposed to send the first copy of the newspaper to the district collector or the district magistrate. And once he signs it, then you can print it. That was the old law, and is still the law in India, under the law. So still there are so many laws which govern the newspaper industry in India, the laws which were made by British, and still there, though Modi government says they are writing off many old laws and making them redundant, but during militancy in Punjab, so we were duty bound to send first copy of the newspaper to the deputy commissioner's residence, though it was only a formality. But then he could always order, say, no printing. Since we were also leaving blank spaces for the news which were censored, which were not allowed to be published after Indira Gandhi's assassination or after. So, but then those were parts of the life those days. So we had to go through them.
So how does censorship work? So ਇੱਕ ਤਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ DC ਨੂੰ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲੀ ਕਾਪੀ ਦੇਣੀ ਅਖਬਾਰ ਦੀ, so that's like early in the morning.
ਉਹ ਤਾਂ ਸੈਂਸਰ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਹੀ ਹੋਏਗੀ ਨਾ. But you see, once you file a report, before it's published, censors would go through that copy.
So who would be the censor? People in the
government would send people.
ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਗਵਰਨਮੈਂਟ ਤੋਂ ਲੋਕੀ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ.
ਬੰਦੇ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਸੀ. They would come and sit in your office. From public relations, from field publicity, from college lecturers, from others, they would be briefed what they had to do, what they had to look for a copy before clearing it. They would come and sit, and all the copies would be scanned by them before they were put in the newspaper. So that exercise was the first one. Moment you file a report and it's edited and then it's seen by the people who have come to censor it. The censors would see the copy. They would clear the copy, only then it would go to the press. And moment like very first day after Indira Gandhi's assassination, so censors came, and I tell this incident to everyone. Mr. Prem Bhatia was editor. He walked into the newsroom around 6:37. So Mr. J.N. Bamru was the news editor. He said, हाँ Bamru, किस तरह चल रहा पेपर? उन्होंने कहा, पाटिया साहब मैं पेपर नहीं काट सकता आज. He said, why? He said, these censors, they are censoring every story. They have censored even Rajiv Gandhi as Prime Minister, new Prime Minister. His address to the nation, they have cut the entire copy. Then what should I do? How I can fill the newspaper? Every story they are censoring. Then he said, oh, that can't be done. They can't censor Prime Minister's statement. They said, no, they have done it. This is the copy, and this is what now is left of that copy. Then he called Mr. K. Banerjee. He was the chief commissioner at that time. He said, do you want me to close the Tribune? He said, why? Why are you so so angry? He says, you have sent your censors, and they have censored even Prime Minister's statement. So what should I use in place of his statement? He said, no, they can't do it. He said, no, they can't do it. They have done it. They have censored his speech. So then he said, okay, let me talk to them. So then Mr. Banerjee talked to the censors and told them, what are you doing? And then Mr. Bhatia's orders were, whatever copy they censor, we should leave blank space in the paper. So every day there would be so many blank spaces. And those blank spaces would carry just one word, censored. That's all. So that censorship continued for a while, for a couple of weeks, before it was withdrawn. So that was one phase which we witnessed during our working time. Real censorship, curfews, censorship, all those things. So common those days. Yeah.
So ਹੁਣ ਓਕੇ ਸੋ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਹੁਣ ਕਾਫੀ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਦੱਸੀਆਂ. ਇੱਕ ਤਾਂ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ ਕਿ ਜੋ ਟੈਰਰਿਸਟ ਸੀਗੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਕਾਫੀ ਸਾਰੀ ਗਰੁੱਪ ਸੀਗੇ ਐਂਡ ਦੇਰ ਵਾਜ਼ ਨੋ ਵਨ ਯੂਨੀਫਾਈਡ ਮੈਸੇਜ. ਅਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਗਵਰਨਮੈਂਟ ਦੇ ਬਲੈਕ ਕੈਟਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਐਜ਼ ਮੋਲਸ ਇਨਫਿਲਟਰੇਟ ਕਰਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਅਤੇ ਦੇ ਵੁੱਡ ਆਲਸੋ sneak out the information or even get certain people caught. ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਗਵਰਨਮੈਂਟ ਕੀ ਗੰਦ ਪਾਉਂਦੀ ਸੀਗੀ ਇਹਦੇ 'ਚ?
ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ
to in terms of these terrorist organizations ਉਹਨਾਂ 'ਚ ਵੜ ਕੇ or in terms of how that would
the government
on two sided ਹੋ ਗਿਆ ਨਾ. ਇੱਕ ਤਾਂ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ ਕਿ what they would do in the terrorist groups, and then two would be how they would influence newspapers. And
as I said, the government used all the laws at that time to browbeat the newspapers because newspapers are very strong. And at times, like some stories would appear which would be like, would make you laugh now. Like one story, there was a bank robbery in Karol Bagh in Delhi. So one of the major national dailies carried a headline at that time, unidentified, clean-shaven Sikh militants rob Karol Bagh branch of Punjab National Bank. Once you are saying unidentified. Number two, you are saying clean-shaven. Number three, you are saying Sikh militants. And nobody would ask them a question. How come you are using this sort of language? Because this was, government wanted to create an image of Sikh militants. They are the people who are dacoits, they are killers, they are robbers. So another day they carried in most of the newspapers, they carried a story. Okay, militants trained in Pakistan were carriers of AIDS. Now, how you say that? Story was run in almost all papers so that people are scared, so they don't talk to them because they thought AIDS was very, very like serious disease, which would very, very infectious disease, which would spread quickly. So those were the tactics government played. Government would fight militants on various fronts. Number one was on the basis of like police laws, criminal laws, and things like this. Arrest them, chase them, register case against them. Number two, as I said, moles. They introduced moles. They would penetrate their ranks. Number three, they would try to deny militants any publicity. You see, even at that time, because I was also like I got a fellowship to work on media, terrorism, and state dilemmas for liberal democracies like India. So this fellowship was from K.K. Birla Foundation of Hindustan Times Group. So when I was studying the problem of terrorism and how it grows and how it spreads and how the governments, so there was one famous statement by British Prime Minister at that time, Mrs. Margaret Thatcher. The militants or terrorists survive on oxygen of publicity. If you deny them that publicity, they die. Because their purpose is only when their actions are publicized and they are able to create a scare, a fear among people, sort of fear psychosis they set in motion. So if you deny them that publicity, but then in a democracy, how you can deny that? Everybody has a legitimate right to air his viewpoint, give his viewpoint, as long as he is within the law. So everybody has a right to say something, freedom of expression, and then you have a viewpoint. You may not agree, you may disagree, or you may agree. It's up to you. But everybody has a right to speak out. But as long as they take illegal means, then it becomes like for the government to take action, they declare number of organizations as unlawful or ban them, and they did. Government of India, Punjab government banned number of organizations, including Sikh Student Federation. All militant organizations were banned. All their activists were declared proclaimed offenders. So government fights from at different levels, and they want to use other channels also. But you see, media is a fourth estate. It's not a part of the first three states. Neither the legislature, nor the judiciary, nor the executive. Media is independent. But government wanted to make it a part of executive. So that is where the conflict started. Media and the government, censorship, laws. So, and they wanted media to be playing a supplementary role to actions taken by the government.
ਬ੍ਰੇਕ ਲਈਏ 5 ਮਿੰਟ ਦੀ?
Yeah, sure.
ਹੈ ਅਸੀਂ ਬ੍ਰੇਕ ਤੋਂ ਵਾਪਸ ਆ ਗਏ ਹਾਂ ਤੇ ਵੀ ਹੈਡ ਸਮ ਆਈਸਕ੍ਰੀਮ, ਵਧੀਆ ਬ੍ਰੇਕ ਹੋ ਗਈ। ਤੇ ਅੱਛਾ, ਹੁਣ ਇੱਕ ਤਾਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਵੇਅਰ ਵੀ ਲੈਫਟ ਆਫ ਵਾਜ਼। ਸੋ ਉਨ ਦਿਨਾਂ 'ਚ ਆਮ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦਾ ਡੇ ਟੂ ਡੇ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ? ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰੀ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਪਣੀ ਦਾੜੀਆਂ ਤੇ ਵਧਾਉਣੀ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕਰਤੀਆਂ, ਪੱਗਾਂ ਪਾਉਣੀ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕਰਤੀ ਸੀਗੀਆਂ।
ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਿਨਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ some of the militant organizations or Pantha committees, they issued dictates. And the gist of those dictates was, okay, first, follow Sikh Rahat Maryada, Sikhism, basics of Sikhism. So the girls would wear salwar kameez, they would have a dupatta covering their head, so students, and kesari dupatta, and maybe blue salwar, blue kameez or white kameez, whatever. Similarly, the girls won't wear jeans. Similar, boys would not trim their beards. They would wear turbans. They would not cut their hair. And the marriages would be simple affairs. Not many people would go as a part of a marriage party, maybe 5, maybe 10. So, number of such things, such dictates like public, no drinking, no non-veg. So, number of such dictates, and all nameplates should be in Punjabi. Even car vehicles registration plates would be in Punjabi. So they insisted Punjabi everywhere, and also personal conduct, personal freedoms. They said they should follow those. So some people call it a reform movement in Sikhism because there were a lot of things which had happened over the years, like the case of apostasy, like cutting hair, trimming beards, were on the increase, and Sikh smoking was on the increase, like girls not wearing salwar kameez but exposing their parts, body parts, so like wearing jeans or other shorter garments. So all those things were opposed, and even they said why marriages should be such a expensive affair. So some points were good. So those dictators had an impact, lot of impact in Punjab those days, and there was a big social change witnessed during that period, and many people would follow those dictates religiously, and they would. Some of the teachers were killed also for not following those dictates because they were told that they must ensure that discipline in their schools, must follow those dictates and tell their students to follow those guidelines. So that was one part which was good in some parts and bad when it was infringing upon your liberties, your freedoms. Okay, if you want to live a decent life, how anybody can tell you, no, this is not the way. This is the way to live a decent life. This is not your freedom. You can't wear this. You can't eat this. You can't move like this. So once it starts infringing your freedoms, your liberties, so they said Sikhism is a very liberal religion. It gives you lots of freedoms. It doesn't curb your freedoms. How come you are trying to introduce those curbs and controls on life of a common man? So that was one aspect of this movement. And scare was so much that even all the government officers, they changed their nameplates to Punjabi. And they even wanted vehicle registration plates to be changed to Punjabi. So even the government people who are supposed to restore confidence of public in the system, they were also following those dictates. And one area which made them follow these dictates was the militants used to issue a new hit list every other day. Okay, so and so officer, so and so public man, so and so is doing this. So we have noticed his actions, and action is being taken against him. So that would scare lots of people. Why militants and the government would feel helpless. They would not be able to help those people who are facing threats. What the best they could do was they will give you one guard. What a guard or two can do when the threat is so real, and when the people with the loss of security, like Punjab's ex-finance minister Balwant Singh, or even DGP Mr. Mangat, they were attacked, they were ambushed with all the security. So security alone wouldn't make people very, very confident of this security or the government, what the actions government was doing. So there was the gap was growing between the government and the people. The people was starting losing faith because they thought after all, those in the government, they were also people like them. So they were also scared. They also had the same threats to their lives. So that up to that, when you talk of that point, so militants had won a point in creating a scare, in creating a fear psychosis those days. So that atmosphere was full of fear all the time. People would always be very, very skeptic of their surroundings, people around them, or people moving around them. He may be a militant, he may be a police cat or anything. So that sense of insecurity was weighing on minds of a common man quite a lot. Yeah.
Wow. मतलब police officer, government officers, everybody was scared.
Scared, and everybody wanted maximum security cover. So they wanted to move around with as many gunmen as possible. They would move in bulletproof vehicles, things like this. So number of vehicles with bulletproof facility was on the rise, and outside many residences of bureaucrats, politicians, you would see tents coming up with security guard there sitting outside. So it like a secretariat building, which is meant to be common man's visiting center for redressal of their grievances, dealing with the government. So they would put up barbed wire fencing around those buildings, and officers would sit inside, protected. Then there would be police corridor outside, then policemen sitting outside, then paramilitary forces sitting outside. So what about a common man? People at the bus stand, they would be exposed all the time. But officers, people, politicians sitting in secretariat, they had so many tiers of security around them. So then this disconnect started. People said that they are protecting themselves, not us. So why we should pay so many taxes not to protect only 100 or 200 people? But what about the common man on the street? Who is protecting him? So that was the game plan also. They wanted people should not have faith in the government because government is biased. So they succeeded to some extent, the militants in that, proving a point, creating a scare and dictates, all those things, they worked. And government started losing revenue because people would not come to Punjab. Business houses stopped coming from Punjab. So people who were exporting like their goods, industrial goods, they were not finding buyers coming to Punjab. And they were finding it difficult to go out of Punjab also to sell their, like in Batala or other places. So there are a lot of industry which used to sell their goods outside Punjab. But then militancy also affected their businesses. So the life overall was affected. And many, many people moved their units, industrial production units out of Punjab because of the fear psychosis created by this movement.
So ਜੇ ਕੋਈ ਬੰਦਾ ਇਹ ਅੱਜ ਦੀ ਡੇਟ ਤੋਂ ਉਸ ਟਾਈਮ 'ਚ ਵਾਪਸ ਚੱਲ ਜਾਏ ਥਰੂ ਅ ਟਾਈਮ ਮਸ਼ੀਨ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਹੁਣ ਜੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਸੜਕਾਂ 'ਤੇ ਘੁੰਮ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ, ਇੱਕ ਤਾਂ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ ਕਿ ਦ ਸਾਈਕੋਲੋਜੀਕਲ ਫੀਅਰ ਕ੍ਰੀਏਟਡ ਇਨ ਪੀਪਲ, ਰਾਈਟ? ਬਟ what were the visible things that you would see on the streets or in the city? For example, the presence of army personnel. So ਉੱਥੇ ਉਹ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਦਾ ਮਾਹੌਲ ਸੀਗਾ ਉਸ ਦਾ? ਮਤਲਬ ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਡਿਸਕ੍ਰਾਈਬ ਕਰੋ ਕਿ ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਘਰੋਂ ਸੈਕਟਰ 7 ਤੋਂ ਸਕੂਟਰ 'ਤੇ ਨਿਕਲਦੇ ਸੀ ਟ੍ਰਿਬਿਊਨ ਲਈ, so what all would you experience and see which would tell you
ਕੁਛ ਨਾ ਕੁਛ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ? You see, first thing, visible thing would be the presence of police and paramilitary forces on the street with their weapons like assault rifles or things like this, which was not a very common sight before militancy started. So finding so many people, heavily armed people, standing at guard duty at different places. Then you will find on the street, after a while, a bulletproof gypsy or bulletproof car or a VIP moving around with 3 vehicles of security guard. So very common, very scary at times. And they would have their guns like this sitting in the car and they were pushing you out. Leave the passage, leave the passage. Some VIP is moving. Very scary. So they would not care for traffic lights or anything. They would just rush through. And anybody on the bicycle or scooter or car, they would be forced to stop to make room for. So very scary. So sometime, like we had gone to cover elections, me and our photographer Manoj Mahajan. So we were in Sangarur, and some of the leaders who were contesting the election, so they all had very large or very what you call it huge security cover with them when they would move from door to door campaigning. So one candidate with 20 gunmen. So scary, and everybody was holding guns like this, ready to shoot like that. They're not simply carrying concealed, but they were like in a position to shoot. So we were moving around with a couple of leaders. So we saw them covering their campaign, how they are campaigning and what they are saying. So then we came down, and after the whole thing we finished, we came down. We wanted to come back to Chandigarh. So we stopped on a roadside, went for our lunch. And next day, I asked, where is Manoj? I want to get some pictures of yesterday's and I want to write a story. I was told, no, he's on leave. I said, he's not on leave. He was with me yesterday. He's fine. He said, no, he's not well. He's not feeling well. I called Manoj. I said, what happened? So he was laughing. He was joking. I know he was joking. He says, sir, I was so scared yesterday. They were carrying so many AK-47s and stun guns. And by chance, if any gun had fired, I would have gone. And I was so scared that मैंने तो टट्टियां लग गई. I'm not feeling comfortable. I said, don't. I know you have seen so much. So I think it was a polite way of saying a thing. Okay, this is a very difficult time to go to field and report. But that was the scare at that time. Because you would see every day so many people with so heavily armed moving around you. And any accidental fire, it could happen anytime under panic. Or somebody says anything and in panic, he fires, retaliates. Is one of the security guards. Then what?
ਹੁੰਦਾ ਸੀ ਉਹ
नहीं होया तो नहीं, शायद होया भी होएगा, मेरे notice नहीं आया. But it was there. The fear was there. Okay, so many people are always ready to fire. Commandos, the black hats, things like this, policemen. So atmosphere was so surcharged. Like everywhere you find weapons. And commandos ready to take action. And then you would see somebody wrapped in a blanket going on a Royal Enfield motorcycle. First thing would be, he may be a militant. You would get scared. You would just move away. Because then government banned flying of Royal Enfield motorcycles. Then government, to make sure the people don't get confused, and since police was also using motorcycles, so the police motorcycles were all covered yellow. So that yellow means that police is safe. Other normal like grey or black colored Royal Enfields were banned in Punjab.
Enfield ही बैन करता.
Banned Siga, because it was very quick way of disappearing after a crime.
Yamaha 3, I think Yamaha 350 भी बैन सीगा कि नहीं सिर्फ
नहीं, Yamaha नहीं सीगा, initially Royal Enfield. And then police had inducted Maruti vans, gypsies. After Maruti vans, then gypsies came into the police because gypsies were faster. And then they also developed tractors, bulletproof tractors for operations police. So you would see whenever you go to Punjab to cover an incident, you will find police in those tractors moving around in the fields and tractors plowing through them, bulletproof tractors. So that sort of atmosphere was visible. And once we had gone, me and Karam, we had gone after Operation Blue Star, we had gone to do a story on how the atmosphere is in Punjab. So we were staying in Amritsar guest house, and we wanted to go out for dinner. And suddenly, people came running into the circuit house. Oh, terrorist target, terrorist target, terrorist target. And I said, no, I'm not going out for dinner. I said, no, we must go here. He said, no, terrorist bar. And what we learned was some militants, they attacked a young couple and took away their scooter. And there was so much of panic and scare, everybody then ran for shelter. So at night, Punjab would be so deserted. There would be nobody, no soul outside. Restaurants would close, everything would close. And luckily that night we went to a hotel across the street. So we got our food. But Karam said, Prab, रात को बाहर नहीं जाना. आज तो आगे खाना खाने पर आगे से नहीं रात को बाहर आना. देखा क्या हुआ उनके साथ, स्कूटर वालों के साथ, मियाँ बीवी के साथ. So that was the atmosphere at that time. It was so scary. And especially when we were in that belt, Majha, we were in Goindwal Sahib, Taran, Amritsar. So we were talking to people. But our deadline used to be by 6 o'clock, we'll wrap up our field operations and come back to our rest house, hotel, or wherever. So by the time it gets dark, we should be back. And that was advisable also on those days. So life would come to a standstill after it's dark, absolutely dark. And people would lock themselves inside their home. They won't open their doors. And then there were some areas where people had built bunkers on top of their building, roofs, bunkers. And some who were under threat, they were given special licenses, they were given weapons. So they would have people deployed in those bunkers at night to keep a watch. Anybody coming from outside who's suspicious looking, they can take action and protect the people living inside the house. So many houses in the border belt, they had bunkers. And I also did a story on a woman. So she was given almost all sorts of weapons, and she would, she was attacked a couple of times, but she would always fire back, hit back, and then she insisted that the licenses of weapons she got should be passed on to her daughter-in-law and her daughter and others, because once they have got the weapons, they don't want to give up weapons. So it's another status symbol as well. Okay, I've got this, I've got 47s from government, I've got cover from government. So that was another element. Many people, they would just put up applications. I am threatened, I am under threats, so I should be given protection, I should be given cover. So everybody would be given a policeman with AK-47 or a stand gun or thing like this.
पर AK-47 बैंड है ना?
बैंड नहीं है, हले भी पुलिस कोल है, बहुत सारी हैं पुलिस कोल, ये सारे वेपन्स।
पर सिविलियन कोल नहीं हो सकती?
सिविलियन कोल भी ਹੁੰਦੀਆਂ ਨੇ, ਹੈਗੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਕੋਲ, ਪੁਰਾਣੇ ਆ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਕੋਲ ਲਾਇਸੈਂਸ ਨੇ।
ਪਰ ਸੰਜੇ ਦੱਤ AK-47 ਦਾ ਕੇਸ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਿਆ ਸੀਗਾ?
ਹਾਂ, ਉਹ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਕੋਲ ਆਥੋਰਾਈਜ਼ਡ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀਗੇ, those who are not protected, those who had no threat perception, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਤਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ withdraw ਕਰ ਲਏ। ਪਰ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੂੰ threat perception ਹੈਗਾ, still I think they have those weapons with them, and they have been given licenses. But now Government of India keeps on reviewing its arms licenses policy. So they keep on reviewing it, and they make sure that only people who have those weapons, they are legitimate owners of those weapons, and they are legalized, or they are officially recognized that yes, they can be a security threat, or they can be a threat to their security, so they need to keep those weapons for their personal security. So that was also very, very prevalent during those days. Security threats, then security guards, then deployment of forces at every place, especially at public places where lots of people gather every day, marketplaces, outside religious places, where large gatherings are normally expected. So all those places were under good cover.
ਸੋ ਹੁਣ ਅਸੀਂ ਪਹੁੰਚ ਗਏ ਹਾਂ ਅਰਾਊਂਡ ਦ 1 hour 30 minute ਮਾਰਕ ਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਕੀ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਵੀ ਕੈਨ ਸਟਾਰਟ ਰੈਪਿੰਗ ਅਪ ਐਂਡ ਦੈਨ ਆਫ ਕੋਰਸ ਇਸ ਟੌਪਿਕ ਦੇ ਉੱਪਰ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੀ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਕਰਨ ਵਾਲੀਆਂ ਬਟ ਇੱਕ ਤਾਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਵਰ ਕਰ ਲਿਆ ਕਿ ਬਈ ਉਨ ਦਿਨੋਂ ਟੈਰਰਿਜ਼ਮ ਦੇ ਟਾਈਮ 'ਤੇ ਟੈਰਰਿਸਟ ਦਾ ਕੀ ਮੈਸੇਜ ਸੀਗਾ ਗਵਰਨਮੈਂਟ ਦਾ ਕੀ ਰੋਲ ਸੀਗਾ ਅਤੇ ਉਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਮੀਡੀਆ ਦਾ ਕੀ ਰੋਲ ਸੀਗਾ ਉਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਫਿਰ ਹੁਣ ਡੇ ਟੂ ਡੇ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਾਫੀ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਕਵਰ ਕੀਤੀਆਂ ਹੁਣ ਇਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਬਿਕਾਜ਼ ਯੂ ਆਰ ਦ ਮੀਡੀਆ ਯੂ ਆਰ ਆਲਮੋਸਟ ਲਾਈਕ ਅ ਸੈਂਡਵਿਚ ਬਿਟਵੀਨ ਦ the public, the terrorists, the government, and so you're kind of sandwiched because you have to write a fair story and you have to be as true as possible to the readers and the public. So obviously you described the relationship you had with the government because ਆਂਦੇ ਸੀ ਸੈਂਸਰ ਕਰ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਫਿਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਕਿ ਵੀ ਟੈਰਰਿਸਟ ਵੀ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਚਿੱਠੀਆਂ ਭੇਜਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਕਿ ਬਈ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਲਿਖਣਾ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਹੀ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਇਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਹੁਣ ਅਸੀਂ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਵਾਲੇ ਕਵਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੀਤੇ ਸੋ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਰਿਲੇਸ਼ਨਸ਼ਿਪ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਵਾਲੇ ਨਾਲ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ
ਪੁਲਿਸ ਨਾਲ ਤੇ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਇਟ ਵਾਜ਼ ਲਾਈਕ ਲਵ ਹੇਟ ਰਿਲੇਸ਼ਨਸ਼ਿਪ ਸੋ ਯੂ ਕੁਡਨਟ ਲਾਈਕ ਵਿਸ਼ ਅਵੇ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਬਿਕਾਜ਼ ਯੂ ਹੈਡ ਟੂ ਗੈਟ ਹਾਫ ਆਫ ਯੂਰ ਸਟੋਰੀਜ਼ ਫਰੋਮ ਦ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਇੰਟੈਲੀਜੈਂਸ ਦੇ ਵੁੱਡ ਫੀਡ ਯੂ ਇਨਫੋਰਮੇਸ਼ਨ ਐਂਡ ਇਟ ਵਾਜ਼ ਅਪ ਟੂ ਯੂ ਟੂ ਯੂਜ਼ ਵਾਟ ਐਵਰ ਦੇ ਫੀਡ ਯੂ and there were incidents which we highlighted. And for example, a constable was tortured to death in police custody in Chandigarh. And I highlighted that story. And we had it as a main eight column headline in the newspaper. So he was just some police officers suspected him to have a soft corner for militants. He was taken in custody. He was interrogated. And during interrogation, illegal detention and interrogation, his condition deteriorated and he died. He died in police custody. So it was very close to the Tribune office. So we ran a story at that time, and at that time, SSP of Chandigarh was Sumit Singh Saini, whom everybody said that he was responsible for many killings of innocent people. But whatever viewpoint people have or whatever he's doing, he's suffering for that. But it was a very true case of police torture in custody. So when a constable was not free. So then Mr. KPS Gill was a big, they said he fought militancy. But then there were times though I had both good and bad relations, as I said, love and hate. So one day on October 2nd, it's a Gandhi Jayanti day, it's a dry day. So there was some swearing in ceremony at Raj Bhavan, and then afterwards, around 11 o'clock, its ceremony ended, and some journalists requested, let's sit together and have a free talk. He said, okay, let's go to officers' mess. So where he used to live at that time. So we went there, and somebody said, or KP Gill himself suggested, let's have a glass of beer. I said, no, today is a dry day. He says, you always talk of law and this. I said, yes, you are not above law. You are a part of the system. And you may be DGP, but law is same. He said, no, let's have. Everybody had a glass of beer. I said, I'll have nimbu pani. So next day, I wrote a small item in the newspaper, spirited homage. Gandhi ji. So he called me in the morning. He said, "Tu hatya nahi, tu phir likhta." I told you yesterday, you are not above law. So he said, "Tenu paar pana bada mushkil hai." So things like this used to happen. But I was not scared. He is a very all-powerful cop. But what is wrong. So another day, there was a meeting in Punjab Raj Bhavan. Top security people, advisors and army people had come and others had come. So the governor, Mr. Verma, had issued an order that no vehicle would be allowed to be parked inside Raj Bhavan because of security concerns. So All vehicle, they will drop the gas and go out. So in between, KPS Gill needed some files. So he came out, he said, "Where is my car? Where is my car?" They said, "Sir, car is parked outside." He said, "My car. I'm DGP." He said, "Sir, governor's order." He was very furious, and car was called in. He took the file, but car was again sent back. So I wrote very next day, "Whose car is this?" So he read it again. He says, "Where were you?" I said, "I was sitting there. I was sitting in ADC's room at that day because there was an important conference, so I thought I may not miss it." He says, "You don't even spare me for that. I don't have that liberty to have my car inside." I said, "No. When an order has been passed, it's for everyone. For ministers, for DGPs, for generals, for a common man." So that sort of atmosphere was there at that time. And when Sir Byan Singh as Chief Minister was assassinated, so I ran a story, okay, like there are so many loopholes. What police is saying was not convincing. So he met me, he said, "Why you find faults with the police all the time?" I said, "No, because your actions are like that. They leave so much scope for such discontent and feeling police is covering up." He says, okay, why don't you sit with the Director for Forensic Sciences, Dr. Mishra? I said, "Sure, why not?" He said, "You have been writing every day on this case and we want to handle it, but you are insisting it should go to CBI, Punjab Police." I said, "Yes, I have reasons to say so and I have no problem. I'll sit with Dr. Mishra." So a meeting was organized. So I sat with Dr. Mishra. He was a forensic expert, very good guy, very good friend. But moment I asked him certain questions, he said, "I don't have any answers to your questions." I said, "That's the issue. That's why I'm saying this is what your theory is not acceptable." He said, "Yes, you have these 2 points. I have no answer. I can't explain scientifically." So then he told Mr. KPS Gill, "Yes, Prabhjot is invincible. We can't convince him. He has his questions. He's sticking to those questions." So that was sort of atmosphere. Not many people would question police, but I used to question police. So I used to question anybody in the field, anybody, irrespective of what impression or what feeling or what image he had built among the public. But my job was, I was answerable to my readers. I had to satisfy my readers. If the readers have a question, I am supposed to be their spokesperson. I am supposed to be their mouthpiece to raise those questions with authorities concerned, because everybody can't reach out SSP or DGP or DIG or anybody. So I used to be their voice and raise those questions. And at times the police would say, "Kya case hai?" So I said, "Okay, that's fine with me. But as long as you are answering my questions or you know what my questions are, you can't just escape those questions." So that was an atmosphere where small little things would make a difference and people would accept, okay, yes, you are a credible journalist, because it's the credibility. If you survived through those years and survived well, it's just because of your credibility. Okay, you are not taking sides. You are fair to both. You are not unfair to police. You are not unfair to militants. You are fair to both. You are giving what they deserve, what is their due. And you are also honestly following your ethics and whatever is required of law as a journalist, you are doing that and you are discharging your duties well. So that was my motto. Okay, I would never deviate from my ethics. I would always follow whether there is a threat to me or no threat to me, because everybody has to die one day. So that issue was never a serious issue for me. Okay, like anybody would attack me and kill me. I had to die. Everybody has to die. So why die in a way that people would say, "Oh, yaar, ਉਹ ਤਾਂ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਦਾ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ ਸੀ, ਉਹਦਾ ਸਰਕਾਰੀ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ ਸੀ, ਜਾਂ ਉਹ ਖਾੜਕੂਆਂ ਦਾ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ ਸੀ. No, they would say ਕਿ yes, he was a professional man. Yeah.
ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇੱਕ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੈਂਸ਼ਨ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਸੀ, ਜਦੋਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਕਿ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਵਾਲਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਤੇ ਕੇਸਿਸ ਕਰਤੇ ਹੋਏ ਸੀਗੇ.
ਬਹੁਤ ਕੇਸ ਕੀਤੇ ਸੀ, ਚੰਡੀਗੜ੍ਹ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਨੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਕੇਸ ਕੀਤੇ ਸੀ. though I had a very good relations with Chandigarh police, but every time I would interview anybody like militant, very next day a new case of secession would be registered against me. And though like there was nothing happened afterwards when the militancy was over, all cases were filed and things like this, but just to put pressure on you, they would say, this is a case, come to the police station, we want to record your statement. Where did you meet this guy? How do you identify that he is so and so? It means you knew him before. So if I say I met somebody who was president of Sikh and Federation, and now government says he is a wanted man, his organization is banned, and everybody is duty bound to, moment you meet them, you are to inform the police. How you know that he was genuine? Nobody else was posing for him. So you have to tell them that yes, before the organization was declared outlawed or banned, I used to meet them. I knew them. So now these laws, these restrictions have come just now for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. But I knew them for 10 years, 15 years. So like for example, Atinder Pal Singh, he formed Khalistan Liberation Organization, KLO. He was initially with Sikh Federation. So when I interviewed him, and he claimed responsibility, he is also part of the conspiracy to kill Indira Gandhi and also Bhopal gas tragedy, or thing like this, he used to claim. So they said, how do you know he's a Atinder Pal and this and that? So I would tell them, yeah, that's my right to know people, and I make sure what I write is correct. So I'm not answerable to you, but I'm personally convinced that he is Atinder Pal Singh. So what he said, I just quoted him, what he wants to say. And if you have any questions, you want to charge him. And you want to register a case against me, register a case against me. But I have just done my duty, professional duty, simple. So otherwise, for other leaders also, they would say, okay, you said you met so many leaders of Babbar Khalsa. I said, yes, I met them. You met members of the Panthak Media. I said, yes, I met them. I said, other journalists also met them. So this is what it is. But government would say, no, you didn't inform police. You are spreading their propaganda. You are spreading their message. I said, no, they have a right to have their viewpoint. As long as it doesn't create any tensions in the society, they have a viewpoint. Anybody has a viewpoint. Anybody has a demand. So how you can deny them their right to speak out what their feeling is? Unless the action I am reporting is not violative of law. They are talking to me, simple. And I'm supposed to report it. Yeah, though I use my discretion, I am not using provocative things, either from the government or from them, but I am trying to use whatever we can soberly say and inform the public what is the struggle about. People must know why they are struggling. So they have a right, and we must give them their due. Either the police or the militants, both should get their due, but not beyond their brief, beyond the legal brief. That's all.
ਮੇਰੇ ਕੋਲ ਇੱਕ ਹੁਣ ਬਸ ਫਾਈਨਲ ਸਵਾਲ ਹੈਗਾ where we can end this episode is, ਹੁਣ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੈਂਸ਼ਨ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀਗਾ, but because there was so much pressure from terrorists, from government, then there is also, your responsibility towards your readers. So in all these very difficult circumstances where, people literally have a gun to your head, ਕਿ ਨਹੀਂ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਹੀ ਲਿਖਣਾ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਵਰਨਾ ਦੇਖੋ ਇਹਦਾ ਨਤੀਜਾ ਠੀਕ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਊਗਾ. So how did you keep your ethical compass pointing in the right direction during all these pressures? Of course, you said, you were not worried about death, but how did you deal with all these different moral dilemmas, and how did you navigate this period for yourself with all the pressures and challenges that you had?
I must tell you one thing more. whenever we talk of pressures and these dilemmas, when I covered Indira Gandhi assassination case, within 3 weeks of assassination, I came out with a story. Somebody went to court to stop that story. Ultimately, we got that stay vacated and we published a story. And after that story appeared, two senior police officers, two of the rank of DSP, so maybe in Delhi police they call it assistant commissioner or something, they would come sit in my office all the time. Wherever I would go, they would chase me. And they continued to do that for years. Because I was talking to militants, I was talking to police officers, I was writing stories, I had covered that story. So, what was the idea of those two police officers chasing me all the time? Just to put pressure on me. And incidentally, while they used to chase me, I also happened to visit Pakistan. So I asked my brother-in-law in Delhi, Mehta Sahab, to collect my passport. I had applied for visa and they said after 3 days you can collect. So they even went to his house in Delhi. Okay, why you went there and how you are related to Prabhjot Singh and things like this. So those pressures, like you are not only saying or doing it, but this was official. They would meet my editor, okay, ask Prabhjot to tell us where did he meet Tinderpal, where did he meet this guy, this Babbar, where he met this Six-Minute Federation Gurjeet Singh, or whatever. So editor would call me, he says, Prabhjot, they're asking. I said, no, sir, I can't disclose them. Because they have trusted in me. They talked to me. They called me. And I can't betray their trust in me. Similarly, if the police gives me some story which I verify and then I use it, I can't tell anybody from where did I get, who is my source. So I have to protect my source. And that's my professional right. So this is how you have to balance. Once people trust you, you have to keep their trust in you. As long as you are staying ethical. You are not doing anything unethical. So I said everybody has a right to give out a message, to release information, which is a public interest. Maybe it's agencies, police, security agencies, intelligence, raw, others, and also militants, their Pantha committees. So everybody has a right. As long as they have faith in me, as they have trust in me, as long as I'm credible, they will talk to me. Moment they find that I am working against them, they will harm me. Whether it's police or militants. They can't harm me because they know I'm fair. I'm not dishonest. I'm doing my job honestly. So that was the only thing which kept me going. Though pressures were always there, always there, and they would come to editor every other day. He's done this, he's done this. He said, I know my reporter very well. He's not done anything bad, anything illegal. So he is discharging his duties as a reporter, and he's supposed to inform public, and he's doing that. Yeah. So that's how it's a very tightrope walking. You can't be this way, you can't be this way. You have to be on the rope all the time. It's a rope. And moment you deviate, you can slip down. You can fall. Either way, this way or that way. As long as you're sticking to the rope, then it's fine. Nobody can raise a finger. That was my golden principle while covering terrorism in Punjab. I never took an off day. I never went away. I would every day go 8 in the morning, 10 in the morning, come back at 2 in the morning. Nobody, even stray dogs won't be there in the streets when I would come back. And though I used to be scared also at night, anybody I would see wrapped in a blanket, I would think like maybe he's a policeman or maybe he's a terrorist. So I would change my route every day. I would follow a different route. I would not disclose where I'm going. Nobody would know about my movements. Though I was basically on a scooter all the time. So difficult times, but still very enjoyable in the sense I had my professional pride. Okay, yes, I'm doing a job in difficult times, but doing it as per requirements of my profession, as per ethics, and as far as I stay a professional journalist. Yeah, that's it.
ਚਲੋ ਜੀ ਗ੍ਰੇਟ ਅੱਜ ਦਾ ਐਪੀਸੋਡ ਅਸੀਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਮੁਕਾਉਂਦੇ ਹਾਂ
ਠੀਕ ਹੈ, ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ
ਕਾਫੀ ਕਵਰ ਕਰ ਲਿਆ ਗਰਾਊਂਡ ਅਸੀਂ ਅੱਜ
Yeah,
Learned
hope
a lot of-
ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਾਡੇ listeners ਨੇ and they would also love to listen to my story, share it, and I'm always open. If they have any questions, they can come back to me anytime. Yeah, most welcome.
yeah and then ਅਸੀਂ ਕੀ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ we'll also link the ਇੰਦਰਾ ਗਾਂਧੀ ਦੀ ਜੋ ਤੁਸੀਂ
It's coming
ਸਟੋਰੀ
up
ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ
next. Yeah,
we have recorded that video, so we'll link that video to this podcast.
Yeah.
So if people are interested in listening to that and going further into that, they can check that out.
yep.
Chalo
you.
ji. Okay ji.
Okay, thank you.
Okay ji.